Welcome to Goldfish on Games, where today we're checking out a mouse. Not one for a computer, this time is for a console, as we check out the Super Nes Mouse. The Snes Mouse was released in 1992 by Nintendo for the Super Nintendo, and was bundled with Mario Paint, as well as sold separately. The bundle was so successful that when people think of the mouse, they think of Mario Paint. But as we'll see, there's far more to this peripheral. The mouse itself has two buttons, which puts it ahead of some mice, and it is of a ball design. And to make it kid-proof, the ball cover has these small tabs that need to be moved to open it up. Inside we see it's pretty much a standard mouse. The only thing that makes it unique is the connector. And being a ball mouse, it is best with a nice felt mouse mat. Yes, I think this one will do nicely. All that's left to do is check out some games, and where else can we start but with its most famous example, Mario Paint. For those who don't know, Mario Paint is, well, a paint package, but given a Nintendo twist. You can just draw images with the basic art screen, but that is just a fraction of what's on offer. There are a range of art tools, colour patterns, as well as stamps that you can use. There are fill functions, copy and paste, and even undo, which is done via the undog. And while this might not be deluxe paint, it is very nicely done. And if you want to make the picture come alive, well, there's an option to add animation. There can only be one, but you can have it of 3 different sizes. With the smaller the size, the more frames that you can add. You can even tie it to a path that you design, so it can go whizzing across the screen. But one of the biggest uses of Mario Paint had to be the music editor. Now I have zero musical talent, so I can just make random sounding noises. But in the hands of skilled people, they can really do some amazing music. And when you've finished your masterpiece, you can save it out to the cart via the robot, who does take his time writing it out, and you are limited to a single save, so you better be careful. The final part for us to cover is the Builtin Minigame, which is this fly swatting game, which might look quite simple, but it does ramp up in difficulty and is lots of fun to play. Amazingly, there were over 60 titles that supported the mouse, though it wasn't always easy to tell if it did so. Some games showed off their support on the box by having this logo show up, but it wasn't universally applied, as we can see on the US box but not on the PAL release. Some games might just mention it in a bit of text on the back of the box, and then there were a few games that didn't let you know until you checked the manual, and others that will just let you find out on your own if you happen to have a mouse connected. So let's check out a few of these games. First up is Fodder, which was a port from the Amiga, which was a platform that got quite a lot of mouse-driven games, so it became quite popular for Amiga titles to keep the mouse input when they were brought over. Just plug the mouse into the second port and it will just work. You can still access the options with its saving and loading menu by pressing the right mouse button on boot hill, which I have to say, it really does run quite slowly on the Snes. The basics of how it works is identical to the computers, with you moving your men around with the left mouse button and shooting with the other. Grenades and missiles are triggered by pressing both buttons at the same time, you can even create teams in the same way by clicking on the soldier's name and then clicking on the bar at the top. As you might expect, both surrender and map are accessed by clicking their icons. I will say the movement of the pointer feels a bit slower than what it was like on the Amiga or PC, and unlike Mario Paint, there doesn't seem to be any option to change it. If you must play a console version of Cannon Fodder, this is probably the better way to do so. The next title is Wolfenstein, which goes to show it wasn't just the Amiga ports that got the mouse treatment. Mice and first-person shooters were always a great match, even back in the Wolf and Doom days, so it's great to see that ID brought it over when they ported the game. Again, you can just use the mouse in port 2, so you can use a controller and a mouse at the same time. You can move forward by either using the controller, pushing forward on the mouse, or holding the right mouse button. Movement and aiming is also done with the mouse as you would do on PC, with the left button shooting, and double tapping the right button will open doors. If you want to strafe or change weapon, you'll still need to use the pad to do so. It would have been good if you could have tweaked the controls, as I never found pushing the mouse to move to be a great experience, but it's a great port and the mouse controls really help. You just gotta watch out for those mutant rats. A number of the light gun games that were released also got mouse support, such as T2 the arcade game.
Let's go.
You can use the mouse in either port and you will control that player. As it supports 2 players, you can actually have one person with the super scope and one person with the mouse if you wanted. Now I have to admit, I've never been much of a fan of playing rail shooters with a mouse. I much prefer a light gun, unsurprisingly. But I will say it does play far better than a controller, so there is that. The problem tends to be that you can be far more accurate and faster with a mouse than you can be with the light gun. T2 tries to balance that by having the shot track the cursor much slower than it can move. Though you can still use the secondary fire whenever, and unsurprisingly it's mapped to the second mouse button. This does make it quite easy to get those headshots on the Terminator, and it's really only when there's large numbers or you're trying to avoid the members of your own side that it becomes difficult. It's a good port that seems to have all the upgrades, and it plays as well as any other rail shooter does with the mouse. But is it just me, or did it look as if they made just quarter of those explosions and then flipped them to fill them out? And it seems Nintendo didn't forget about the device either, though it might seem that all the games that they added support to only came out in Japan. But we did get support in the Super Game Boy. If you press both mouse buttons while it's in port 2, you'll get the main menu, where you can tweak anything you normally would do with the controller, but you can now do it with the mouse. And obviously it comes into its own when you try to draw your own custom border. While some of the later games that Nintendo released might not have worked with the mouse, they did add code to check for it, and will give you a warning if it is connected to port 1, though the message doesn't look all that great, so I don't think they really expected many people to ever see it. This might be one of Nintendo's most supported accessories, even if trying to find out which games actually used it can be pretty difficult. It really is an underappreciated add-on for the Snes. And until next time, I was the Goldfish, that was Nintendo having a ball, and this was Goldfish on Games. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, you can let me know down in the comments, or you can use those buttons just below. You know the ones I mean. Or if you're not sure yet, then you can check out 2 other videos that I've done that are on the screen right now. So thank you again, and I hope to see you soon.